All right, welcome back to another hour of Scotch Hour. My name's Noah.
And this is Jesse.
All right, Jesse, so we'll hop right into, I guess we're going to be doing our Scotch review. The new one is, what is it called?
McClellands.
McClellands. And then then we got a late notification on our
Smarter Challenge.
which is going to be something about, what does it mean to be a cowboy? Is that what it is?
That's right. We finally decided on Thanksgiving what the Smarter Challenge would be. What is a cowboy?
Okay.
Best cowboy movie. And throw in a little bit there comparison of True Grit, old versus new.
All right. And then also our restaurant review. We we went to a Mexican place. I don't even remember what the Mexican place is called, to tell you the truth. It was that memorable.
It was like Las Magnificacas.
Number 3.
Scotch Reviewed.
Tell us what we got here.
I don't think you have to know a lot. Here was the point. We're doing an episode on cowboys. We want to have some fun. And while perusing the shelves at a local liquor store, so this was Liquor Galaxy off of Hampton, kind of just east of I-25, they had this one and it stood out because the question was, what kind of scotch would a cowboy drink if a cowboy could drink scotch? And really, it came down to a couple basic things. Cheap, and then the Lowland popped out because we talked about it on a couple occasions. We hadn't had a Lowland single malt scotch on the show. So we figured this would be a good go. With that, the McClellands, they don't have their own distillery per se. So what this is, it's part of the Morrison Bowmore Distillers Company. That's the parent company. And they are the ones who produce the single malt scotches we've got Islay, the Highlands, Speyside, and this one here, the Lowland. McClellands itself, there's no McClelland distillery. It all pops out of the Bowmore, which we haven't tried on this show yet, but I have heard some pretty great things about.
So I'm a little bit confused. Like, why is it called Lowlands then? This is where I'm confused. Like, is it most of the time like when it's wherever the distillery is located? So is Bowmore, is that located in the Lowlands?
Bowmore has distilleries in all 4 areas.
Okay, now I was lost. Now I'm found. I will say that, I don't know anything about this here, but I will say I do like the color or the scenic kind of scene there on the label with that bridge. I think that's a kind of a famous bridge, though, in Scotland.
Well, they actually redid all of their labels. McClellands did in 2007. It's a famous Scottish artist, actually, that they had redo them for them.
Okay.
But looking this up, it's saying here that the Lowland whiskey region is located in the southernmost part of Scotland, covering much of the central belt and the south of Scotland, including Edinburgh and Lothians, Glasgow and the Clyde Valley, the Kingdom of Fife, Ayrshire, Dumfries, and Galloway, and then, of course, the Scottish border. That is quite a bit. So with the Lowlands, if you go to, when we peruse our local liquor stores, our favorites, you don't see a ton of Lowland Scotch. You see a lot from the Highlands, Speyside, Islay. And so, again, this is going to be new. But what I have heard is that, particularly with McClellands or Bowmore, they do use the ex-bourbon casks. And with that, because of the way that they do their distilling, the sill has the neck isn't there. And the story goes when they were bringing in this particular distilleries, the Bowmore distilleries, still that it didn't quite fit in the building, but they shoved it in and bent the crooked neck, the crane neck, if you will, and so they just got rid of it, and they do things a little bit different. That's how the story goes.
Because it says established in 1818, so is that like they established McClellands in 1818?
McClellands, yes. Yeah. The McClellands name. And so it comes all back to a lot of what we saw in America and all other countries. It's a name of, or a family that started, if you will, some bootlegging, some liquor on the side.
So McClellands was their own distillery at one point in time, and then Bowmore, they bought them out.
That's what I hear.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
But Lowland, single malt Scotch whiskey. And my only hope is, it doesn't disappoint. It would be what a cowboy drinks. So let's see what we got here. So true story is if you're looking for something of what we might consider a traditional Western cowboy, there was no real single malt scotches. There were
that one could be yours.
Okay.
That one's a little heavy for me.
All right. There were no traditional single malt scotches.
That's good.
And the whiskeys themselves, of course, had not been refined. So they had a lot of creative names like Firewater. And
I heard like in the West, the Old West, what they would consider a whiskey is not what we would consider a whiskey today.
Not at all. No, not at all.
It'd be more like moonshine, if you will.
Exactly what it was. Yeah. And there a lot of the companies that are around today were just little families doing their own thing. So
actually, you know what? Might I go first?
Okay.
And then you can read what it says on the box, and then you can give your notes. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Because you're going to have a little bit more to say than what I do.
Sounds good.
Okay, so for me, I found the color, with a lot of the other ones that we've been trying up till now, I really like the darker colors. This one is very light, and I would say I give it kind of like a straw color, and not that it's bad in color or anything like that. It's just like a little bit lighter than I'm quite used to with some of like the Highlands and Isla and some of the other ones that we have been drinking that we do enjoy. Now for me, I got like on the aroma, I got like a hint of vanilla and butterscotch and slight citrus. I couldn't really place the citrus. But after when we did our tasting here, it kind of made sense. And I'll let you bring out what you found for the citrus. And I think that's what that hits it on the rose for me, or it hits it on the nose. As I tasted it on the palate, I found it to be very light bodied all the way through. It wasn't it wasn't like medium body like some of these other ones that we've had, or it wasn't a very heavy one or at all. It was just really kind of light all the way through. For me, what kind of stuck out was that on the front palate, I got hints of rose. And then the mid palate, it just became like really creamy. Nothing really hinted out to me in flavor. It just went like from rose to like a creamy. And then the finish is like I got a splash of oak with some ginger, because you get like a little bit of that ginger spice there on the tail end, and then you have a lingering rose again, and so that's kind of like to me, it starts off with a slight rose, creamy middle, hits you with a little bit of oak, followed up with like some spiciness of the ginger, and then that once that dissipates, you get like a lingering rose in the flavor, and that's what I get from it.
All right. Well, we're going to start this off with what they say is one of their notes on the box, which we found quite humorous. And it reads, there is a softness of touch about McClellands Lowlands single malt, pale and interesting in the glass. And I think that sums it up for
pale
me.
And interesting. Are we talking like a ghost here or something?
Something like that. Yeah, this is definitely not, this would be the opposite of something bold for sure. I don't, it's nothing bad. There's just nothing good to say about it. But I will say we've had a couple other scotches that were so mellow that they were forgettable. I can imagine this is going to be pretty close. But as you mentioned, for me, the color, very light gold, not brass like we got with the Macallan Edition 6, or you would get through a Lagavulin, a Smokehead. Not that deep color, a very light gold color, very mild yellow, really. For me, the nose, Floral with just that little bit of citrus is what I'm getting from the nose. The first time I smelled it, I smelled rubbing alcohol. So that's an improvement. It had a few minutes to breathe, so it's no longer rubbing alcohol. But we,
I as well got rubbing alcohol at first.
but really got that floral with that little bit of citrus for me being the tangerine with the palate, and I think you summed it up pretty well. Very mild from front to end, starts very much so with me with a powerful tangerine and floral taste, followed by a long oak flavor, and then finishing with that rose and ginger, that spice right at the end. And I love ginger, but it took a minute. It's not just ginger. It's almost like a little bit of nutmeg might go great with a pumpkin pie. I'm not going to bet my life on it, but yeah, that's how I would sum it up.
Restaurant Review.
Do you want to do this? You want to hit this restaurant review?
Yeah, so was it Las Delicias?
Number 3.
Number three. So for me, looking at the reviews, we feel like where could we go that would keep up with the theme of like the cowboy way, I guess, if you will. And really, when you think about the Old West, there's a lot of stuff that, at least in the movies and in the history, like they go down to Mexico a lot, and there's like always some kind of things intertwining with the Southwest and Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just makes it's natural to think of possibly eating Mexican food to go with that, or we could have gone with steaks and something by the grill or something, right?
Yeah, but we had recently done Ted's,
Yep.
and the Brazilian steakhouse. Yeah, we've done a lot of steak.
Yeah. So we went to this Mexican place, and it has like a bunch of great reviews. Like a lot of people gave it like 5 stars, 4.5 stars. My personal opinion, okay, when you walk in, it is, I don't know, kind of like, I think it matches up with almost any kind of like average normal Mexican restaurant. Nothing like to write home about. Nothing really sticks out. It's, it is like, you're like, okay, you walk in like, yeah, it's a Mexican restaurant,
It was a little rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just didn't like, whatever. And I was expecting the food to be great. But to me, it wasn't great. I got although to be honest, I didn't get like the best Mexican dish out there anyways. I did get the Mexican hamburger. So I'll put a little bit of blame on myself for getting kind of a gringo Mexican dish. But it's, basically you look at a Mexican hamburger, it's still basically like a burrito. So it's smothered in green chili. You got, your cheese, the sour cream, lettuce, tomato, all that stuff. So regardless, the green chili was okay, nothing to write home about. Their salsa was overall, this is what I would say. It's like decor. If we're walking in decor, 10 being the highest, I would probably give it like a 6.
That's pretty generous.
I mean, it's like I said, it just matches for me. Matches just about any other Mexican place you'd walk into. Nothing really stood out. Nothing was like really like awful about it. Then I would say the food, I'd give that about a 5. It wasn't like terrible, but it wasn't great. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's Mexican food.
Yep.
And it didn't like, nothing rocked my socks off. Like when you see like a bunch of people giving it 5 stars or 4 stars saying like, this is the best Mexican food in all of Parker and all this stuff, I was expecting like a really good dish.
Yeah.
And no, I did not get that. I feel like it was like maybe a step up above Taco Bell.
That is pushing it.
I mean, honestly, if I'm going to get a burrito, I would rather just go down to Chipotle or Casa Vida or Cafe Rio or something like that. But that is not the place I would go for just like if I'm going to go for Mexican, I'm going to just go down the road to, was it Casa Mariachi or whatever?
Casa Mariachi.
Yeah, I'd rather just go there.
Yeah.
Or the Real de Minas.
Yeah, there's
Like,
a handful of places.
Yeah, I think their foods are like way better. Any case, the one thing I will say about them, they were super Johnny on the spot with the salsa. Like a lot of times I like to take the salsa and dump it on my burrito or whatever. And honestly, usually I have to ask for a little bit more salsa. But as soon as I dumped it on my burrito, they're like right over there, boom, pouring more salsa into our dish. So I will have to say, as far as the wait staff goes, I'll give them like a 7.5. So overall experience, I'll give it a 6.
That's probably pretty close to where mine's going to fall. So for me, walking up to the front of this place, yeah, it fit perfect. Like this is where if you're in an old West, this is what you're walking up to. It's it wasn't dirty. It wasn't that it wasn't clean or kept. It's just that it wasn't spectacular. The outside looked like it was part of a rough, I'm going to say Aurora neighborhood, but it was in Parker on Main Street. And inside the decor, again, very simple. And I think that's a fair word to assess it by. It was just simple inside. Going in, yes, I agree. The service was, I'm going to go ahead and say the service was an 8 as far as what they could deliver and did deliver. They greeted us promptly, sat us when we decided we didn't like the booth because it was pretty small, didn't have any room, and we wanted to be able to enjoy our food. They moved us right over. The chips, the salsa, again, you said Johnny on the spot. The margaritas, also mediocre, very quickly there. The dinner served super swift, which is like I feel like that's actually a trend and a quality of a good Mexican restaurant. They know what they're doing and they get it together quickly and bring it right out. So for the food, I had the combination number 5. So I had the crispy chili relleno and the beef, and I'm going to say ground beef burrito smothered in their green chili and a cheese enchilada smothered with their red sauce. For me, the one win was the crispy chili relleno because I felt like everything else I literally could have gotten somewhere else, including Taco Bell. But the green chili was a bit of a letdown for me. We make damn good green chili, 2 different styles. And so maybe there's a pride factor there that I didn't taste the chili. It looked like green chili. Didn't really taste like green chili. But again, the service was great. And then, so for me, wait staff service 8. Decor entrance, and this is tough, but it's a 6, just because there was nothing outstanding. The food for me, another tough spot is, if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, a 5 is actually a pretty good score, right? It's halfway, it's right dead in the middle. So for me, food was a 5. Would I take a date there? No. Not if I wanted a second date. I just would not. Would I go there with a friend? Maybe for a quick drink, not for a margarita. Maybe if everything else, the other restaurants we liked right around there were closed, because there's an amazing Indian restaurant right across the street. Would this be a place where if you take a gal, you get a second date? Only if she's coming asking for a Imodium or Tums. Just saying, that's the only way you're going to see that person again. Is if she doesn't make her to her car after you take her back to your place and she decides she's going to leave you. So for me, total roundabout, it is a 6. Service was great. They were great people. And for us, it just wasn't what we expected, partially because of the reviews and partially because we know what else is out there. So some people clearly love it. Was it right for a Cowboy? Maybe. Like I felt like I'd eaten a Cowboy dish the next day when I was running back and forth to the bathroom.
Well, I would say this, like the pricing is pretty moderate in price. So like if you're gonna go to like one of the other places that we mentioned, you're gonna pay a little bit more. Here, it's actually very well priced for the food, for the amount of food you get. You get a lot of food, and it's not that expensive. So that is a positive. And I'm not really sure if like having your food come out super quick is a sign of good quality, because that just kind of tells me that maybe that it's already pre-prepped and cooked, like almost to the point like all they're doing is just slapping together really quick and doing, and it's out the door. Where maybe, and I think this is a fine line here. Do you want them to take a little bit more time in knowing that you're getting like a freshly cooked thing, or do you want it to come out so super quick that they're just taking like they had like I don't know what they're called, but like those metal pans that are just sitting there, like,
chafing dishes.
Yeah, I already have all the food in there, and they just take a spoonful and then out the door. It's kind of a fine line between the two.
I bet money the beans were prepped and slapped onto a tortilla. The beef was, the crispy chili relleno, that chunk of cheese, or maybe they grated it. Most places don't anymore. They just literally take a chunk, put it in the egg roll wrapper, throw it in the fryer for 3 minutes, plop it on your plate. Green chili was already made. So I have no doubt that all of mine was a matter of like 3 minutes.
For me, like I've been thinking like a burger, like having a Mexican burger. I would have like maybe wanted a little bit longer to know like they cooked my hamburger and that it wasn't a pre-cooked hamburger.
Oh yeah, no, it was pre-cooked, buddy.
Yeah, I know. It came out way too fast.
The only time you might get something not pre-cooked there is if you got one of their fish dishes, or if you got fajitas, maybe.
Smarter challenges.
Into our smarter challenge.
I
got friends in low places where the whiskey runs and the beer chases my blues away, and I'll be okay. All right, what does a cowboy mean to you, man?
No, that's a really good question. So what is a cowboy? And you can look up the basic definition, and it's going to be like, a settler or a person who had a specific time period in American history typically, or does a specific job. And I don't think that's accurate at all. So I think that's how the cowboy started, the cowboy way, if you will, started. But to me, a cowboy is much more complex and diverse than just a character like John Wayne in True Grit from 1969, which to me was an atrocity in comparison to the Coen brothers version of True Grit starring Jeff Bridges from 2010. That was a quality movie. That movie was moving to me when I rewatched John Wayne's version just recently. I was actually kind of in shock about, and times change. A lot of things change, but the quality of acting, and I'm even talking about comparing it at that point to Clint Eastwood movies, not the great Clint Eastwood Western Unforgiven, but some of the other Clint Eastwood movies. I thought they did a much better job with acting. So a cowboy is someone who is self-sufficient. A cowboy is someone who, yes, will get dirty, will use their hands. I think manly hands are something cowboys typically do have, is because they use them. Now, that doesn't mean they're rough and beat up per se, but they like to dig in and do things. They like to actually be fruitful and produce something. This could be agriculture as a farmer. It could be meat as someone who's got a herd of cattle. It could be someone, and this is where it starts to venture out, who is, as you look at times changing, a biker. It could be someone who is James Bond. A good movie.
I don't know about James Bond. I think he might be too much of a city guy.
But see, that's just it. You can't. I don't perceive the cowboy wearing a hat. And
I'm not saying necessarily they have to wear a hat. But
But to me, he goes in, he gets the job done. Now another thing is,
Bond seems too suave to be Cowboy.
I don't know, man. Ladies love cowboys. Not, before they marry them. Then they marry them, and then all they want is out, typically. But they love the thought of a cowboy until they marry one or until they meet one. And I think part of that is it's that bad boy presence where they don't need you. They can go and make their own living. They can make their own food. They can get everything taken care of. It may not be glamorous. It might be gorgeous, but it is something where they get in there and they get dirty. And then also a cowboy is the guy who's willing to do something that most people might not. So he's willing to get his hands dirty in other ways as well.
Okay, so you kind of gave like kind of a broad sense here. I kind of have my what kind of fits like a cowboy. I think there's almost kind of like almost two versions. There's kind of like the more historical version, and then there's stuff that kind of bleeds over into more modern times. I definitely believe that a cowboy is a type of rugged person. They're rugged. They have bravado. They self-confidence in themselves. They are risk takers. They do follow a code. Like you said, they are hard workers, and they don't mind getting dirty. And they have to be very self-reliant, especially if you go back into the more historical sense, where a lot of times they left the East Coast and come out west, where they had like basically just it was like the Indians and them. That's it. There's like no law put in place, nothing like that. So you actually had to be really self-reliant, and you had to be able to be self-efficient, and I think as we kind of like go more into the modern age, a lot of times, I think what we see sometimes like that I kind of see with cowboys is they tend to be more nationalistic, more conservative. They seem to be respectful to. I would say women in general, but more like to their mom and sisters. You see them opening up doors, so they're more gentlemen in that kind of sense in certain ways. But they do kind of have a different air to them than you would get with someone who comes from the city. Now, some of these characteristics you could find in someone that comes from the city or more of a city type folk person, and this is where I think there's a little bit of a crossover between like Bond and a cowboy, but where I think Bond just comes off a little bit too suave and wouldn't really fall into my definition of a cowboy. But I mean, there's like some characteristics that do cross over.
Well, I want to take it, as we transition from historical first perceived cowboys to more modern versions, a great movie that kind of showcases what it means to be a cowboy, even though they aren't necessarily both cowboys per se, is Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. And here you have a cowboy that is literally driving a motorcycle but dressing like the traditional cowboy hat, vest, shirt, the whole 9 yards, boots. And then you have the biker that's actually a biker, and he's wearing his full leathers, completely different, not the hat, but both, driving their big old Harleys. I thought it was a really well done movie, but at the end of the day, it's two people who are good people as far as they live by a code. And I think that is a key piece of it, is that cowboys absolutely have a code. We may not agree with it. It may not be the common, most popular way, but they do have a code. And it's usually a foolish one in some ways, because a lot of times they would then put a friend in front of a spouse or a parent. They would, it's interesting. Their code isn't always the most popular one, but they do have a code. I do think James Bond personifies what it means to be a cowboy. I'm going to take it a step further and talk about Tony Stark is another cowboy.
That's another one I don't totally agree with, but I mean, I see where you're going with both of them, but I'm not 100% on board.
Yeah, I get it, but he is someone who goes in, uses his hands, gets the job done. They usually do not follow popular ways. So they don't just go with the flow. They stick to their beliefs. Their code is a big deal to them. And at the end of the day, man, they are willing to die for their code.
I'll give you that they're willing to die for their code, but I still see like Tony Stark and Bond just being too classy and too suave to really fall into like a cowboy code.
All right.
But I mean, like I said, but there is a little bit of a crossover for some of those. And as far as I'm concerned, like, yeah, I see that there's some similarities, but I wouldn't quite call them cowboys. Now, like John McClane in Die Hard.
So now you got it.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah, no, Hans Gruber literally calls him a cowboy.
Yeah, he has more of a cowboy grit to him.
But except during the movie, he's the suave cop.
I guess. I don't know. But no, I don't know if he's really a cowboy.
I mean,
he does call him a cowboy, though.
Yeah, he literally calls him a cowboy. And I think he is. He's another one of the many that I think fall into this category. And then, as we talked about it, and I know you want to disagree with this one too, John Wick. Another suit-clad cowboy.
Actually, I'll give you John Wick.
Dude, the guy's suave as can be.
I'll give you John Wick because he had a code. He left his life to go be with his wife. Had that like he was dedicated to his wife, treated her well. Then some guy comes and kills his dog and all that stuff.
Stupid.
Or whatever.
What were you thinking?
Steals his car and all that stuff. And but here's the thing: I think he does fit that more of the cowboy code than Bond or.
But he's still suave. He's still got the nice cars, the fancy suits,
he might have
guns.
He might have the fancy suits, but I consider him a lot more rugged than the other two.
See, I think they use their tools a little bit different, but I think they all work with the same tools.
Yeah, I still think the other two are a little bit of a stretch for me, but I'll give you John Wick.
All right. So our definitions of cowboys and what it means to be a cowboy are a little bit different, but let's see.
I think we can both agree there's a code.
Oh, there is absolutely a code.
And they follow their code.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which is something that I can say something about you. You follow a code. And at least as far as I know, you and I have always talked about having it like there's a code.
Yeah, not always very popular with some people.
No, not always, not at all. But you follow the code, so that's so out of like the actors out there, I know like at least like in the older generations, a lot of times people say like John Wayne makes the ideal cowboy. I disagree with that.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
So when it comes to an actor or movies or like who is your kind of like ideal?
This is tough because there are many ties to our thoughts on who was the best James Bond. Is it because we were more close to the art because of our generation and when we grew up? And I think that there might be some truth to that. But I mean, when I think of like Sean Connery as James Bond, again, I think the guy was a cowboy. And when I think of John Wayne and I watch his movies, I'm just not impressed. But maybe, I think there's other pieces to that. Now you fast forward from, say, John Wayne and True Grit 1969 to Clint Eastwood. 1992, Unforgiven. You could almost say the storylines follow some of the same traits. Both the characters do have codes, but when I watch the movies, I believe Clint Eastwood. I believe he's living by that code. He makes me respect someone who's obviously done bad things. And I think that there is another truth that a lot of people don't want to hear, and that is good people do bad things. That is a truth. Good people will do bad things.
And I think bad people change, or they can change.
Oh, man, that one's a tough one. But
well, if you look at it, Clint Eastwood's character, he was a bad guy.
In Unforgiven, he started out as a bad guy, yes.
And he became good.
Yeah.
But it took a wife.
I mean, and kids. I don't think it's the wife. By the way, that's not meant as disrespect for any woman. I don't think it's a wife that changes a man. I think it's kids.
Well, he says that it was his wife in the movie.
I agree. I remember that very clearly, but just thinking about every man that I know that has changed in those ways, and not all men change because of kids, but it's usually because of kids where they really straighten out. And I think there's a lot that goes in with that, which is now you are not only trying to provide for one or two or three or more mouths, but now you're also having to be a role model.
Okay.
But yeah, so for me, throughout all the time, knocking out the modern versions, like if we included the modern versions, man, Daniel Craig did an amazing job in Cowboys and Aliens.
Never seen it.
Oh, it's a pretty good movie, and he does a great job as Bond. John Wick, like if we were truly classifying him 100% as a cowboy, he would probably be the best. But keeping it more true to the original definition, for me, it is Clint Eastwood.
Okay.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I would have to agree. When I think cowboys and Western movies, it's going to be Clint Eastwood and those spaghetti Westerns. Really, actually, not even so much like the spaghetti Westerns, which there are a lot of great ones. Like, yeah, Fistful of Dollars, High Plains Drifter, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Then the one I really like a lot is Pale Rider.
Okay.
And
Outlaw
then-
Josie Wales.
Yeah, Outlaw Josie Wales. But my favorite, though, is definitely Unforgiven. And I would say that's probably, it's kind of tough. I think between Unforgiven and Tombstone are probably like my two favorite cowboy movies. Because I do think, is it Kirk Douglas? Is that who plays Wyatt Earp? Can't remember who plays. I think it's Kirk Douglas who plays Wyatt Earp. But Val Kilmer.
Russell.
No.
It's not the gentleman married to Goldie Hawn.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So it's Kurt Russell who plays Wyatt Earp, and then Val Kilmer who plays Doc Holliday. I think Val Kilmer knocks it out of the park.
Okay, like I don't disagree. That movie is phenomenal. It's tough to actually pick a favorite Western because that is right in there. But yeah, man, Val Kilmer does. He is flawless in that role. Now you even like
Right there, that's a cowboy.
any John Wayne movie compared to Tombstone just leaves me, like, even just the thought of it leaves me wanting, because of all of the actors in Tombstone did such an amazing job. And Val Kilmer is absolutely the one who sticks out in my mind too. Like Kurt Russell. Yeah. Kurt Russell did a damn good job. You need your marshals, you need all these people. But man, yeah, Val Kilmer.
You know who's
Slater.
another kind of a iconic Western cowboy type of guy is Sam Elliott.
Oh, okay. I can see that. How about Christian Slater?
Nah.
No,
When did he play cowboy?
he didn't. He just always plays those roles where he lives by a code that's not popular. Pump up the volume, different things like that. Now, he was not a strong man in that movie, but he was kind of, I guess,
He's more of a rebel in that one.
That's a good
Like a
point.
teenage rebel.
more of a rebel than a cow. And I think that is another thing, is that I think cowboys, again, good people do bad things, but cowboys usually do contribute to society in some way, shape, or form, whereas rebels do not.
Well, I mean, it kind of depends. Depending on what what you're talking about for rebellion, I guess. In any case, my favorite Christian Slater character has definitely got to be Very Bad Things.
See,
She fought like a Comanche.
yeah, he's a good actor. Like, he really is a good actor. Val Kilmer has been an amazing actor, although not the best Batman. There's another one. So here's another thing that's an interesting piece, and this is another. You mentioned this in a different way when you were giving your description, is that bravado piece. You used the word bravado, and I think that that's true. It's not courage, it's bravado. And so in my book as well, Batman is a cowboy, but Superman is not. And the biggest difference is
I'll
the
give you that.
bravado piece, because Superman literally isn't afraid. The guy's ultimately he's an alien, but he's a god. We really can't hurt him unless we have kryptonite. Whereas Batman is driven by fear. He is literally driven by fear and these terrible memories and wants to do very bad things to a lot of people. So he's another one. Yeah, pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think bravado plays a very big portion there. And I think when you look at like traditional, sorry, I have to clear my throat, but when you look at some of the like more, when you think about the American spirit, or I think about all the people who came over from Europe and all that and immigrated over here to the United States in the early parts of our nation's history, a lot of those people did have that. They had that risk taking mentality, the self reliance and that bravado that they needed in order to succeed in a new land. And I think that's something as a nation probably gets older and older, and maybe that starts to mild out, and you start losing that that kind of ruggedness, that self-reliance, that independence, that bravado, that like that we still like. I think cowboys still hold on to it, and you see it a lot more in like Western states than you do in Eastern states. Well, maybe not far west. I think like California and Oregon and Washington, they've all went like so far up the foo-foo ladder that they're like having guys dressed in like dresses and crap. But you're talking about the Southwest, like, you know, like New Mexico, Texas, Colorado used to be that way, but Arizona still probably has a little bit of it. But, you know, I think we've kind of lost that in the American spirit, but it still holds true for some of those who still hold on to those, like the cowboy way or the cowboy tradition, or even like the traditional American spirit. I can be wrong.
No, I think you're pretty on par with that. For me, like the best movie is it's really a tear because I love Tombstone. I absolutely a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit more.
I absolutely love Unforgiven. Young Guns was a hoot too. Young Guns was fun.
Young Guns was a hoot.
For me, I think I have to go Unforgiven. And part of that is also because Clint Eastwood, when Noah mentioned the spaghetti Western, if you don't know this, Clint Eastwood couldn't get a job acting in America as a cowboy. So he actually went over to Italy and did spaghetti. That's why they're referenced as spaghetti Westerns, and was part of many Western movies there that ultimately did really great. And then he comes back to America and, he's not giving anyone necessarily the full middle finger, but he's like, yeah, no.
Well, even when he came back, he didn't really get like a ton of Westerns either, because he ended up doing like Dirty Harry.
Another cowboy. Yeah.
You know, and then he did the Anyway But Loose, where he's like the fighter. Was it? I don't want to call it a street fighter, but yeah, is that what it is?
It's basically, yeah.
Okay. I love the orangutan.
Left turn, Clyde, or right turn, Clyde. But yeah, so the spaghetti Western phrase literally came from the fact that Clint Eastwood was out in Italy making Western movies because he couldn't get a job here. Did such a great job, though, came back, did get roles, and then made some of the best Westerns ever.
Yeah, I think he did a phenomenal job. So I would say like definitely either Tombstone or Unforgiven are probably right there in my top two. Like, I don't know which one I'd say is my favorite, but I'd say they're both really, really close. I could watch them both a million times.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say, like with Unforgiven, that friendship code though, that goes a long way, especially between him and Morgan Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "You put my friend out there on that, displayed him, and after you kill him, like I'm gonna beep you all up."
Yeah, and he does. Spoiler alert.
He's like, "I don't care about who you are or what you are. I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna beep you up." And then there's that really kind of like prissy like rider guy's like, who'd you shoot first? Did you shoot? And he's like, I don't know. I just shot people and killed them.
Truth be told, it's all about luck. Anyone who tells you differently is lying. It's a beautiful scene in the movie. It's just so well done. Just a beautiful scene.
And Gene Hackman, he was like a terrible, like bad good guy.
Yeah, he did
because he's supposed to be the sheriff, so that means he's supposedly the good guy.
Yeah,
but he's like a terrible.
Oh, yeah.
He's like an evil good guy.
Yeah, and also if you remember a terrible carpenter in the movie.
Yeah. But I suppose that takes. I guess him being an evil good guy is all about perspective, because we were kind of like looking at the perspective of Clint Eastwood and his character and his friends and what they're doing to go right and wrong to what happened to a prostitute.
Yeah.
And I think if you look from Gene Hackman's side of things, like he's like the law trying to keep the peace. I guess it kind of depends on which side you're looking at. But I think Gene Hackman was in the wrong for displaying his friend like that.
I think, as you watch, I think one of the other things they do really well in that movie is kind of display and show some of the unequal treatment of different types of people, if you will, and particularly the prostitutes. I think had Gene Hackman, I think this is where the code comes in and the trouble came in, is Gene Hackman's decision not to do more to the offenders who changed a woman's life for the worse, so to speak, for the rest of her life.
Yeah, if he would have done right that first go around, none of that would have happened.
Yeah. And so that's the interesting piece also about the Cowboy Code for Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman there, is that they could live with that. They could live with the fact that this guy cut a lady up and wasn't really punished by any means, wasn't whipped, wasn't locked up, did no time, traded a pony, basically, some ponies. But they were perfectly willing to live with the fact that, that was wrong, and I'm not going to feel bad about being an assassin.
Talking about the whole like the code and in friendship, that was also pretty prevalent. Prevalent, yeah. I was gonna name the movie, but then all of a sudden I forgot the movie, and then I messed up prevalent. Tombstone.
Yep.
When you look at Doc Holliday. He's like, you're my only friend. And look what he did, to help out Wyatt. Like, he had that code and he followed it through.
Yeah. To the end.
All right. And then I think you have, there was another one I wanted to mention. Oh, well, never mind. Anything else you want to say about Cowboys?
No, I think ultimately one of the truths for me is a good cowboy movie, the character, and you have talked a lot in the past about character arcs. The character in good cowboy movies or good westerns in particular, to me, is one that shows just that. It shows the hero's tale where they, in essence, typically are not good, and then they learn good and ultimately come in power because of that, and then something turns and they have to face, in many ways, their demons again. So in the case of Unforgiven, he was an assassin, met a woman, had a family, stopped killing people, started a farm, started growing his food, doing things very good naturally, and then he's faced with his past as he comes in need of money.
So here's another one. The Sniper movie, American Sniper. Mm-hmm. I forget the guy's last name. It's Chris something or other, right?
It is Chris something. I do not remember his last name either.
But he started off as like a rodeo rider, and he like grew up in Texas. He definitely had that cowboy mentality. I remember they show like a scene in the movie where he's talking, or his dad's talking about like how either you're a sheep or you're a wolf. You're a wolf, a sheep, or a guard dog. Which one are you? And his brother was pretty much a sheep. And then he was pretty much a guard dog. And he kind of followed that kind of code all the way through. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the reason why he did so many like tours and stuff like that in order to get that other sniper eventually and stuff like that. But, you know, I think if you follow that movie, that is a really, I think his story kind of shows more of a modern day cowboy. You know, that ruggedness, the independence, self-reliance, the idea to be the hero, as you will, the hero's story. He had a tragic end as well. Yeah, but I think that's another good one that kind of points it out.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to say about?
No, I think that's it. It's interesting to think about with cowboys and westerns and all of the history that goes into there and cinematography. Anyone who doesn't consider the impact that cowboy movies, westerns had on cinematography and what we enjoy today, you know, almost a piece of it could be The Matrix. And is he a cowboy for coming in and bucking the system, so to speak?
He was a flaw in the Matrix.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's really.
But that
was his job.
Yeah. That's just it. Every cowboy is a flaw in a perfect world. But they go in and they do something because it's not a perfect world. It's ultimately a very messed up world. And they come in and follow the unpopular opinion and change it for the better.
I would agree. I think this was a pretty good topic. I think it was fun to talk about.
It was fun to rewatch a couple of those westerns, particularly Unforgiven.
Yeah. Unforgiven, that's always a favorite of mine. I love watching that movie. Tombstone, I always love watching. The new the kind of new True Grit. I think Jeff
Bridges.
Jeff Bridges. Okay, Jeff Bridges. I think he did a pretty good job.
Now here's the question: in the newer True Grit, is it Jeff Bridges that has the True Grit? The daughter who's seeking vengeance for her father that has the True Grit, right? I mean, she loses an arm.
Well, I think if you look at Jeff Bridges' character, or I guess in the older version it'd be John Wayne's character, he's kind of a drunkard who has to kind of be prodded to go do the job.
It's tough,
and I think in that, if you look at that day and age, it's a young woman had to have like that grit and that bravado and like that push and that drive. So I think she just kind of exuded way more than him. Like, yeah, he might have had true grit, but he was kind of a drunkard and he was kind of like not the best character.
But most cowboys aren't. I mean, they have a turning point.
Yeah, well, yeah, but in any case, I think she probably had more true grit than he did.
I agree. And one of my favorite scenes in that movie is when she's negotiating with the guy who sold her father the ponies.
Oh, yeah.
And she's selling them back. And she goes back the second time and she's like, no. And he's like, wait a minute, are we negotiating again?
He's like,
He got schooled. She just does a great job. Education. She was a smart gal.
Yeah. So, any last words about cowboys?
No, my recap is really going to be Clint Eastwood was in the movies my favorite Western cowboy for sure. He did a great job. The guy's getting old. It's going to be a sad day when he passes because he's done so much for the world and the movies for such a long period of time. Spaghetti westerns, if you've never seen one, definitely take a minute and go see it. Yeah, they're great. A lot of western movies from past and even more current ones are filmed here in Colorado. A lot of times it's because of our beautiful aspen trees and everything up by Estes Park and north. Beautiful area. Cowboy movies are fun. They live by a code, and that's the biggest reason that it's easy for me to enjoy them is because they live by a code. It's not always the popular one, but in many ways they could be considered a hero.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think out of all the actors, if I had to choose which actor portrays what being a cowboy is, I would go with Clint Eastwood. Favorite cowboy movie? I'm gonna say it's a tie. It's gonna be Tombstone
Tombstone's damn
and
good.
Unforgiven. I think for like kind of a modern day, I think just check out American Sniper. Bradley, whatever his name is.
Bradley Cooper?
Bradley Cooper. Yeah.
You can't forget the Bradley Cooper.
I think Bradley Cooper does a good job in portraying that sniper. And I'd say ultimately, I think it boils down to be like the cowboy code. Ultimately, boils down to having a code. Usually, there's a good portion of that revolves around friendship. But you have to have that bravado. I do think you have to be rugged, and you have to be self-reliant and a bit independent. That's kind of what I would wrap it up in. As far as the finishing up here on the
McClellands Lowlands single malt.
I would say out of the bottle, I'm not a really big fan of it. But when you pour it into a glass and let it sit for a while, it tends to get a little bit more creaminess to it, and the flavors aren't so pronounced. They're very mild. It's very light bodied, so it makes it very easy and quaffable to drink. If you look, I'm not sure what the price point was on it, but
it's like $30.
Okay, for $30, it's not a bad single malt Scotch. It's like I said, it's just easy to drink. Nothing to write home about. I think the spiciness from the ginger, though, I think it might be just a little bit too much of ginger spice in it, but not enough to like really derail it. And I think the other flavors are pretty mild enough to where, you still get that rose. So in my opinion, you still get a little bit of the vanilla. I think that's what happens with that creaminess there that I get. And then, like I said, in my opinion, you still get that blast of oak at the end with that lingering rose, and that ginger spice. But overall, I think for the price point, you want something easy to drink, mellow. I like it. It's not bad.
You can use to blend, make a blended drink.
Yeah, I think you could. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great either.
Yeah, it's no Scarabus. I don't hate it.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that Mexican restaurant. It's unforgettable, but it's
Unforgiven.
Yeah.
For me, the color very, very light gold. Again, not that wonderful brassy color that some of our favorites have, and the floral notes still very pronounced. The front has that little bit of citrus, although it's not so much of a tangerine as now it is just a normal everyday orange. For me, the oak is throughout the middle, and it does still finish up with that floral ginger flavor, which, if nothing else, actually is nice that it has a finish. It doesn't just fade away into nothing.
For something for this low costing, you would expect there to be no finish. And I like how you get like the blast of oak and ginger and then the lingering rose.
Yeah, this will be a good one to try in our sloppy Joe recipe or some of our other Scotch recipes, because it could be interesting.
It could be.
I mean, that's what they say, right? Pale and interesting in the glass. Well, we're going to have it pale and interesting in our sloppy Joes.
Pale and interesting. All right, I guess it's my turn to talk about Smarter Challenge.
Next week's Smarter Challenge.
So next week's Smarter Challenge, because it'll be coming out on, I think next week's will come out on the 16th. So that is coming up right up on the Matrix. So I am going to choose the Matrix. I guess just everything about the Matrix, kind of like looking at the theology that goes along with the Matrix, the character arc of Neo, possibly even Morpheus, maybe. What you might think of the Oracle in her place, because there's a lot of stuff you can break down here in the Matrix. Like there's the whole brain in the vat theory. Like if you were just a brain that was kept alive in a vat, would you know that you were a brain in the vat? Which is kind of goes back into how the humans are being used as batteries. Like they're basically in a vat. They don't know about it. So, and if all we are is like electronic impulses, how do we know if we are not technically in a matrix itself? So I think there's a lot of like, and you start looking at some of the name of the characters, what they do in the Matrix in all 3 episodes, and I guess you can even take, we can also add in the cartoon there. I forget what the cartoon was, but I think that comes out between episodes 1 and 2. Or is it between 2 and 3? I don't remember, but there's a cartoon that comes in. It's like a cartoon movie. In any case, when you look at some of the names and how they kind of like relate to religion and stuff like that, there's a lot of the characters' names have a lot of meaning to it. And I think the Wachowski, I don't know, do I call them the brothers or sisters? I don't know what to call them anymore. Because they had a sex change.
It's the Wachowskis.
Okay, the Wachowskis. I think the Wachowskis did a very good job of like pulling in like multiple theories and multiple religions and ideas into the Matrix. And being that we have the new Matrix movie coming out, there's a guy who is called, I think his YouTube channel is called Majestic Eyes. And he does a really good in-depth analysis of the first trailer of the new Matrix movie, and so I think it'd be kind of interesting to kind of take all that into account and see what we break down.
All right.
I mean, do you want to narrow it down some, or is that kind of like general and narrow enough for you?
I think it's general. We can each dive into some of the areas that intrigue us most.
Okay, good. All right. Anything you want to say to the peeps before we end the night here?
Remember, do not drink and drive. Behave, if you will. Life is great. Thank you guys for watching the show. Please like, subscribe, and give us feedback.
Feedback is always very helpful.
Very helpful.
So I would say once again, thank you to everyone who watch us. We do greatly appreciate the time that you take to listen or to watch our show. Hopefully you do like the Scotch reviews. We did try doing something a little bit different this time around, the Scotch review, and trying just to shorten it up a little bit. So you're not hearing us taste it or seeing multiple cuts. But hopefully you do. If you like that, let us know. If you like the old way, let us know that too. And once again, we are on YouTube, Rumble, Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Audible Music, and Amazon Music. I'm sorry, Audible Podcast, and then Amazon Music. And if you do like our show enough, please become a patron. It's the very first link inside our description area. If you go there, you can become a member for as low as $1 a month. If you are, even though I'm kind of, like I mentioned earlier, even though I'm a Scrooge, if you do want to give us a Christmas gift, just become a patron member. Give us a $1 a month. That's only $12 for the year. And that does go to like things like for us to improve our equipment and stuff like that. With that, hopefully you all have a wonderful night, a safe night, and it will be same Scotch time, same Scotch hour, and cheers.
Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed this evening's episode of Scotch Hour. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you have not done so already, please become a patron member, with memberships starting as low as $1 a month. Thank you, and hopefully you have a wonderful evening.